Hey everybody, Psychosaurus is here. Welcome back to Age of Empires Online. And today, well, we're gonna continue with what I did in my previous video about the infantry units, but this time it's gonna be all about the cavalry units. And goddamn, yeah, as you can see, I tried to split it up into groups, and I was like, some groups are very similar. Okay, so as I'll be talking about them, yeah, you will understand like why I did that. But yeah, very similar units in some cases. But anyway, cavalry units in the first place. What are they? So cavalry units typically are fast units that you can recognize by having some kind of mount, usually a horse. But of course, we have multiple kinds. We have also camels. We have elephants. And also specific for Romans, the chariot being pulled by the lions, of course. And I don't think there's anything else. Yeah, nothing else. So yeah, those are cavalry units. As I said, typically are very fast units, which gives them some nice advantage, especially against ranged units, siege, and could be also priests if you see them in quests. But yeah, basically ideal for, hey, flying the enemy, hit their backline, and get out of there if you can. So that would be the ideal for the cavalry. So they definitely prefer some more open space. But yeah, sometimes, hey, even close spaces can be good for them. But yeah, as I said, typically fast. The typical speed would be around 9, I believe. Sometimes it goes a little bit lower, sometimes a little bit higher, and then of course there are exceptions that are going even like much higher, and sometimes they are even slow. There are even slow cavalry units. But yeah, that's gonna be the main idea behind them. Typically, you train them at the stables. As you can see, a lot of those stables are there. Now, there are of course exceptions. For example, Romans. As you can see, they don't have the stables. Instead, they are using their castellums, their auxiliary camp, and their praetorium to train their specific cavalry units. Indians also have Mahout camps where they train their elephant units. And Egyptians use their fortress to train their war elephants. So that's gonna be the difference. And of course, there are advisor units that you train at the fortress. But anyway, let's move on to the specific cavalry types that I will describe. And let's start from the left. And this is gonna be a little bit confusing because I think there's one more category or type that's actually very similar to them. But yeah, first I have to start with these two guys. So Asabaras, Raiders. But there are others that actually fit in very nicely. So these two I would describe as the anti-ranged focus cavalry units. So both of these, as you can see, they are using swords, they have shields, typically fast, like Raider is very fast, Asabara also quite fast. Both of them have some bonus against ranged units and some pierce armor to protect them. Of course, I forgot to say that every cavalry unit has crush armor, typically 0.5. They are very resistant to crush damage, so using them against something like ballista is definitely a great idea to do so. And these two guys, of course, can do their job as well. But yeah, these are like the anti-ranged units. As you can see, bonus, everything is there. Now, there are similar units to these guys, as you can see, sword and a shield. And that would be this category, which would be Hippicon, Decurion, Golden Hippicon, and Desert Cavalry. I decided to put them into this one group. Now, they do actually get also like some pierce armor. They are pretty fast. Usually Hippicon is a little bit slower. Decurion is faster. Yeah, Golden Hippicon. And Desert Cavalry is also faster. But in general, I did not put them into the same category because they don't get the bonus against range. They are rather like resilient to pierce damage, but they don't get the bonus. And more likely they are generally strong cavalry units, as they don't get the bonus against the range. And I would say like they are great against range. No, they are like beefy, strong cavalry units that do good amount of damage to any unit type. And since most of the cavalry units are dealing cavalry damage, and as you remember from last video about the infantry, there were only spearman units that actually had the cavalry armor, so cavalry units can actually deal pretty well with infantry as well, as they do full damage. But there's of course a catch, because cavalry units also don't get infantry armor, so they are generally also weak against infantry. So yeah, this is where it's gonna get a little bit complicated, guys and girls. While there are units that cavalry units are definitely great against, there are also, it is also a fact that infantry units can deal well with cavalry units because they usually lack the infantry armor. And these guys are there as well, but luckily they have good amount of health and good general damage, so they can deal with them. But back to the anti-range. So that would be these two guys. This category could be there as well, but they are more of a general use rather than just specifically anti-range. But hey, we have to get this a little bit more complicated, because there is another anti-range unit that's pure anti-range unit, but I did not put it into the same category because it is very specific, and that's the Psychosaurus. Now, Psychosaurus, it is anti-range cavalry. It gets bonus against ranged units. It gets very good pierce armor. But it is actually the most unique cavalry unit in the game, because this is the only cavalry unit that actually does not deal the cavalry damage. Instead, it's dealing pierce damage. And also, it has attack range, I need to mention. Psychosaurus is like very weird unit, okay? It is cavalry, but it behaves as a ranged unit. Which yeah, you might be like confused, like sometimes, like, is it cavalry, is it range? It's using javelins. It's riding a horse. Is it a ranged? Is it a cavalry? Is it like mounted archer where it would be ranged? Well, it is the most confusing one, and as I said, the most unique one. So yeah, this is the only cavalry unit that actually deals pierce damage. Now, obviously it has some benefits, as it allows Psychosaurus, for example, to deal with spearmen a lot better than any other cavalry unit, because spearmen has no base pierce armor. So Psychosaurus will do very nice job against spearmen. Plus the range should help them keep the distance, so the spearmen should not be able to hit them and snare them and do a lot of damage. So Psychosaurus is like very specific unit, okay? Very specific. And as you can also see, this is the only cavalry unit that has no crush armor. So yep, it is very weak against siege units. But luckily, they're fast, so they can close the distance. But still, because of their range, their slow attack animation, hey, those siege units might actually hit them. And since siege units also have very high pierce armor, Psychosaurus are not ideal against siege. This is like a very specific unit. Very specific. So yeah, it can be good against spearmen, unlike any other cavalry units. It is anti-ranged cavalry unit. It's using pierce damage, which makes, as I said, good against spearmen. But then it makes them terrible against stuff like siege, stuff like buildings. So yeah, very unique guys, okay? So think about this one more as a ranged unit that is on a horse and it's fast and it's countered by anti-cavalry units rather than anti-ranged. Like I said, it's a confusing one. Anyway, let's move on to the second category, and that would be the anti-cavalry units. So that would be these four: Prodromos, Celtic horsemen, the Norse horsemen, and the Roman Gallic horsemen. Yeah, very easy. You can remember it's horsemen, and then Prodromos. So these are very specific. Usually they are very fast. Horseman is pretty okay fast. The Celtic one is a little bit faster. Gallic is heavy cavalry unit, but as you can see, it's still pretty fast. And Prodromos is very fast. Now, all of these in common, they have bonus versus cavalry unit. They have some cavalry armor, which is definitely good for them, especially Gallic Horseman has very high cavalry armor, 0.40 base. So all of these are just specialized against cavalry units in general. So whatever you see around them, they should be able to deal with those units. So all of these and all of these should die to these 4 guys, no matter what, as they do a lot of damage to them. Now, yeah, they are very specific, because horsemen, the Norse horsemen can also get the bonus versus siege, but as I said, cavalry units are generally strong against siege because they're fast, they can close the gap, hit them, kill them, and then get out of the battle before the dangerous infantry comes in. But yeah, now I need to mention only the Norse horseman has the pierce armor, so as you can see, it's only 0.2, so it's not like super strong pierce armor. These are actually weak against the pierce damage. Prodromos, no pierce armor. Gallic horseman, no pierce armor. Horseman, as you can see, no pierce armor, and also no cavalry armor. This is one exception, but this is compensated by the very high health. Okay, 500 health is pretty good. Only this guy gets it after the champion upgrade, but yeah, in general they are weak to pierce damage, so hey, ranged units can be good, and they are not specialized against them, so they'll do okay damage, but they will not like kill them super fast, like let's say the Raider or Asabara or even Sarisaforoi. So yeah, beware also of the enemy defensive structures, as those can hurt these guys if you can keep them away from the towers especially. So yeah, careful about these, but generally counter the cavalry, weaker against the pierce damage, and again weak against the infantry as well. Now, as you can see, I put these 3 guys over here, and that's because I would say they are a little bit unique, because they are somewhat between the anti-ranged type and the anti-cavalry type. Now I'll start with the camel. A camel on the first look looks like the anti-cavalry, but you have to remember, after the champion upgrade, they also serve as the anti-ranged unit. So they are something between. They don't get the cavalry armor, but they get the bonus versus cavalry. So they are like the anti-cavalry units. After the champion upgrade, they also get some pierce armor, so they are a little bit more resistant. They also get the bonus versus range, so they can kill them. And so they serve the purpose of both anti-ranged and anti-cavalry. Very specific for these guys. Now, Indian Turangas are on the similar note, actually, as the camels, but it is actually the other way around. They are very strong anti-ranged cavalry unit, but they also get cavalry damage and armor after the champion upgrade. So for them, it's the other way around. They are good against ranged and become anti-cavalry as well. But of course, I wouldn't consider them like to be as strong as the anti-cavalry that are generally strong. Like these guys should be able to kill these guys. Okay, remember that. So they will be good, but yeah, they will not be as good as these guys. And then of course there's Ekes for the Romans, and this one is actually already starting with some bonus versus cavalry and ranged. As you can see, they get both against ranged, against cavalry. They get some cavalry armor, they get some pierce armor. So in general, they should be like better against cavalry units that are not countering cavalry, but they should lose to cavalry units that are actually countering the cavalry. So they, I guess, will do well, let's say, against Asabaras, but they will do poorly against Prodromos. But yeah, now how do we recognize these guys? Okay, we need to remember this is gonna be a little bit complicated because there's another group that's using similar stuff. But yeah, in general, anti-cavalry units, as you can see, are using spears. Same goes for these guys. As they turn into anti-cavalry, at some point, they are using also spears. Only the thing is that if they counter the ranged, they're still using the spear, okay? So, but yeah, anti-cavalry units, they have spears. So those cavalry units with spears will do better against cavalry units. But obviously it depends on what you're dealing with, as it is hard to tell how good it is. But if you have your anti-cavalry unit, then most likely you should be fine, as these should be like evenly matched. And against these you should be better, okay? So it depends on your civ, your anti-cavalry unit. But if you're using like some normal cavalry units, like let's say the Asabara, yeah, you don't want to fight any of these. So that should be it. Hopefully I explained it somewhat well, but please tell me in the comments, maybe I can try explaining it there if you feel like I said something that's not understandable by my explanation. But anyway, yeah, anti-cavalry, they are using spears. Those anti-cavalry, anti-ranged, they are also using spears. But yeah, if you remember, it's these three units, then yeah, these guys are also countering ranged. While the anti-range, hey, swords and shields. And in case of Sarissa Foroi, javelin. Very specific one. Now let's move on to another category. And this one is also gonna be confusing, as these guys are also using spears. And that's the anti-infantry cavalry units. Yay, they exist actually. These guys are actually good against infantry. So yeah, if you use these guys against spearmen, they should be evenly matched with the spearmen. Maybe even better, depends. But anyway, there are only 3 units here. The Lancer for the Babylonians, Cataphract for the Persians, and then for the Celts as the advisor unit, the Headhunter, or I should say Headhunters. But anyway, one good thing you should remember, if you're fighting Babylon or Persians, or if you see Headhuntresses, but usually I would say you won't see Headhuntresses that often, so I'm just gonna go with these 2 guys, so Lancers and Cataphracts. If you see these guys, you can see they're using spears. Now you can stay calm because they don't have anti-cavalry unit. You can remember that. They don't use these because they already have the spears on these guys. They don't have the anti-cavalry unit that would be using spear to counter the cavalry, okay? You can stay calm with that. Instead, they are using mounted archers. But about those guys, in the video about ranged units, coming sometime later. I don't know when I get to it. But yeah, these 2 guys, easy to remember, Babylon, Persians, no problem. Now, if you take a look at their stats, bonus versus infantry is there, of course. They get the infantry armor, as you can see, Cataphract gets that as well. Now, Cataphract is lacking the pierce armor, but once they get the champion upgrade, hey, the pierce armor is there as well. So in general, you don't want to fight these guys with your infantry, as they are countering them with their bonus and the infantry armor. And also you don't really want to fight them with your ranged units, as they get pierce armor as well. While if you see Cataphract without the champion upgrade, yes, you can use ranged units. You can do that. But once you see them with champion upgrade, yeah, be careful, because now they are more resilient to pierce damage. So careful around those guys. But anyway, Cataphracts are a little bit slower, 8 movement speed. So yeah, maybe you can run for a little bit. Lancers are fast, and they can also get the charge attack of the champion upgrade, so they will be fast and catch up very nicely. But anyway, what you want to do against these guys, you want to use your own cavalry units. And it doesn't matter. As you can see, they don't really have like the super high damage. If you take a look at the population cost, take a look at the damage output, they don't really have that high damage output. You can see it's like 7 DPS. It's mostly the bonus against infantry that's helping them a lot. In case of Lancers, it's the charge attack. So what you want to do against them is train your anti-cavalry units, if you have them. but these guys should be the most ideal counter to these guys. If you don't have those, well, you're in luck, because your normal cavalry units should be working as well. Raiders, Asabaras, as you can see, they do really good damage. Psychosaurus is bad because, as I said, these guys have some pierce armor, so Psychosaurus will not be a good option. But yeah, Hippicons should be good against them, the Curians, and so on, so on. They should be fine against these two guys, including the Headhunters as well. But yeah, generally they are weak against cavalry and good against everything else, and especially the infantry. And in case of Cataphract, also against siege, but Lancers are also great against siege, as they have the charge attack and they will just charge in at your siege and obliterate those units, so careful around those. But yeah, again, good against siege, good against ranged. Main focus is against infantry, which obviously they do a really good job. And yeah, just use cavalry to counter them, or just do a lot of damage to them, whatever. But yeah, cavalry, the ideal counter to them. Now, of course, there's the Headhuntress. Now, the advantage against Headhuntress is she has no armor, so you can practically throw anything against her. It will do full damage because they lack the armor. Now, unfortunately, they do a good amount of damage. These guys actually do good amount of damage, as you can see. Very good damage. And also, they are very fast. So, again, careful with your siege, careful with your ranged units. But you should be able to do a lot of damage to them. The main thing about them is they are supposed to raid the enemy bases, like kill the villagers and then obliterate any infantry that would be there defending the base, and then get out. But yeah, in general, they're good against infantry, but they lack the armor, so they are somewhat squishy in comparison to the Lancers or the Cataphracts, like very squishy, so using your Spearmen can be good against them. But again, remember, be careful. If they are elite units, yeah, they hurt. Anyway, let's move on to the next group, the next type. And these guys I would consider as the generally strong cavalry units, as they have pretty good health, pretty good damage. Like I said, I would compare them, put them into the same group as Asabaras and Raiders, but I don't think they necessarily do the same job. But hey, it's very similar actually. They are too similar, okay? Maybe I should have put them into the same group, but the role is not completely the same. But they can do the similar job. Usually in quests, yeah, you will see them do the similar job, as they are generally, yeah, Raiders and Asabaras are also generally strong. But anyway, their main purpose should be against ranged, okay? These guys, yes, they can do a really good job against range, as they have some pierce armor. Hippicons, yeah, you can see that. Good damage, good health, some pierce armor, okay speed, like 8, okay, it's not the fastest, but hey, it will hurt, it will hit hard. The Curian is just slightly better Hippicon, but you can see more pierce armor, more health, and some extra stats as well, and slightly faster. Now there's also the Desert Cavalry. While it has lower health, it is faster, unlike the Hippicon. So in comparison to Hippicon, yeah, weaker but faster. And then there's also Golden Hippicon, and this one again is very specific unit. As you can see, it's basically Hippicon, lower health. You can see that, better damage slightly, but also you have to notice this is the one and only cavalry unit that has 0.3 crush armor. So these guys are actually more vulnerable to siege than any other cavalry units. So be careful around siege units with these guys, okay? Yeah, sure, the crush armor helps, but 0.3 is just some resistance. They will be taking a lot of damage, a lot more than your typical cavalry. So yeah, careful around these. But in general, good cavalry units that do good amount of damage. They can take some good amount of hits, especially from pierce damage. So in general, very strong units. How do you deal with them? Well, brute force. What can I say? You need either use your counter units, spearmen, your anti-cavalry units. Whether it's like these guys, the anti-cavalry, they should be doing a really good job. Or in your case, could be mounted archers if you're playing as Babylon or Persia. But yeah, in general, hit them hard. That's the best thing you can do against them. Now moving on to the next category, and that's gonna be the elephant category, as there are 4 elephant cavalry units. And I would say, in general, they have one thing in common. All of these do splash damage. All of them. You take a look, they have damage area. Of course. But each of them actually focuses on some different aspect. As I would start with the Egyptian war elephant. This is like the most well known, the oldest one in the game. Generally okay damage. Now obviously it does not look great, as it is for population unit with 23 DPS. Does not look that great, but you have to remember they have the splash damage, so they will hurt large groups of units. Okay, they will hurt those. But anyway, bonus versus siege, bonus versus buildings. Now obviously all of these guys except this guy, I think, no, it has some bonus against buildings. It is there. This is against buildings. Yeah, so in general, elephants are good against buildings, especially walls, because if you have watched my video about walls, how to deal with them, then you know that the splash damage is really good against walls. So all of these should be able to break through walls without a problem. And of course, if there's a gate, they can attack the gate, and if there are units standing in the gate, hey, they will take damage as well. So yeah, in general, very good against buildings and large amount of units that are grouped together. So that would be the idea behind this. Now of course, you could say all of these are good against ranged units, as they get the pierce armor. In this case, you also get the bonus against ranged units. The Egyptian ones get extra pierce armor from their champion upgrade, so they are much more resilient after the champion upgrade. And they are pretty fast, so hey, if they catch up with your ranged units, whew, it hurts. Juggernauts. Now, Juggernauts unfortunately are slow units, but they are compensated by their very, very high armor, both against ranged units with the pierce armor and the infantry units with their infantry armor. And also slightly higher crush armor. This is also very unique. The only unit with 0.60 crush armor base, okay? No one else has that. But yeah. Also, weaker to conversion, so if you want to counter Juggernauts, hey, you can convert them slightly faster. And then there's the Egyptian armored elephant, which good amount of health, good amount of damage. I mean, yeah, sure, on a first look, it actually is weaker than the war elephant, but then you can see also, whew, that bonus against buildings. This is more like a living battering ram, okay? It is slow, but I will describe it now more as something between the war elephant and the juggernaut these days. Like, it would make perfect sense. Very high armor, great damage against buildings. You can see the juggernaut does good amount of damage against buildings. So these guys are more specifically against buildings. They are slow, that's unfortunate, but juggernauts are also slow. You can use them against structures. But yeah, in general, good against structures. How do you recognize them? Very easily. There's a huge beast with a rider on top of them. You can't miss those. Also, I forgot about these guys. A sword and a shield, very similar to Raider and Asaba. But yeah, these guys, huge beast. That's how you recognize them. Now, how do you counter them? Now you can see they don't usually have the infantry armor, except the Juggernaut. But in general, I would not really suggest using infantry units unless they are like resistant to splash damage. But in general, infantry units are not a good idea unless you have a good micro unit, so you can split them away so they don't take the splash damage. But usually, hey, they'll be taking a lot of splash damage. So infantry units, careful with that, with those. They can work, but you will need to be careful you don't lose too many against one single elephant, okay? But in general, hey, cavalry units, especially anti-cavalry units, are great. Yay, those work, because guess what? None of these have cavalry armor, so they take full damage from the cavalry units. So yeah, you can counter them with cavalry units. Ideally with the anti-cavalry, so Prodromos, Norse horsemen, Celtic horsemen, Gallic horsemen, even like camels or Turangas can be really good. And cavalry units are also larger than the infantry units, so hey, the splash damage is not really gonna work that well against them. So yeah, cavalry units, ideal counter to these guys. But of course, if you want them on your side, you can also convert them. That also works. Especially the armored elephant and the juggernaut, since they are very slow. So, hey, they will not catch up to priests until they are converted. Okay? So yeah, you can use priests against these two specifically. But yeah, other than that, cavalry units are good against them. And then there's one specific cavalry unit which I would describe something between the elephants and something between the generally good cavalry units. That's the Hetairoi. Now, why did I put them there? Generally, they have pretty okay damage. Now, these days, unfortunately, they have very low health, which is like one of the saddest things about these guys. Okay, I keep saying it. I love Hetairoi, but unfortunately, their health is terrible. For a free pop unit like with 550 base health, like come on. And of course, once you're level 40, with the champion Hetairoi, they will have like, I don't know, I think you can get like 1200 health. That's not good, to be honest. For a free pop unit, 1200 health, yeah, that's not good. These guys will die super fast. And the more general idea for these guys is, hey, they will just destroy the bases really fast. You can see the very high bonus against buildings. That's their strength. You can use them against anything, but because of their low health, I hope this will get changed with the advisor units rework. Because that's like the one thing that kind of makes me dislike Hetairoi. I love them. Like the torch, let's raise the buildings. Yeah, it's a good unit, but goddamn, the health just makes them terrible. But yeah, like I said, there are something between the generally good cavalry unit. You can see pierce armor is there, good crush armor. They have also pretty good speed. It's just the health that's terrible. Like, the damage is pretty okay. It's the health that's terrible. And like I said, in combination with the elephants, the main reason being the bonus versus buildings. Like, they do a good amount of damage to buildings. But yeah, Hetairoi in general are weak. Most likely you will not want to use the ranged units against them, but since their health is low anyway, you can use ranged units. But yeah, melee units should be good counter to these guys. And finally, the last one, and very unique one. This is a very specific unit. That's the Roman Primus Pilus. Very specific one. This is the officer unit, specifically designed for the Romans. Now, in general, you don't really want to see it in battle, or you want to use it in battle, like, hey, you will be at the front doing damage. Instead, you want to keep it near the battle, because it is a unit with aura that actually reduces damage of nearby enemy units. So that's the idea how you want to use the Primus Pilus. You just want to stick him there near the battle, so he actually nerfs the enemy units that are near him. But anyway, if you want to use him in battle, he has really good health, like 1500. That's no joke. Like, he's there. He's very expensive. You have to remember that. Like, he's very expensive, but you can train only one. So although, yeah, you can see like 24 DPS, but it's only one unit with a 4 pop, no splash damage. So yeah, it's an idea. So if we take a look at the stats, he's more like those generally strong cavalry units with some extra against priests and the aura on top of it. But yeah, like I said, you don't really want to see him in battle, but if you put him there, hey, remember to heal him with Clinicus. Anyway, to counter him, well, you just have to obliterate him. You just have to like hit him really hard and get rid of him as soon as possible before he actually causes more damage than you would like. I mean, 10% less damage for your units when he's nearby, like, oof, it does not look much, but hey, it can make a difference. So yeah, focus him down with anything you can. As you can see, he has like some pierce armor, but he's still vulnerable to pierce damage, okay? So you can shoot him very nicely. So if you focus him down with your ranged units real fast, can be fine. But anyway, yeah, you most likely you will rarely see him in battle. Like in quests, you will almost never see Primus Pilus there, like random ones, scarce in some quests, but yeah, rarely you will see him. And also be careful, once he dies, he'll spawn like there fighting for his last breath, and then he dies anyway. But yeah, careful, he can spawn himself and keep fighting. But anyway, I hope I mentioned everything about the cavalry units. Yeah, oh yeah, how do you recognize Primus Pilus? Very easily, come on. It's a chariot pulled by 2 lions. Very easy. And also, it is the fattest guy here that you will find. So, yeah, very easy to recognize it. But anyway, hope I said everything. Hope I explained the cavalry units. So just to remind you, we have the anti-ranged ones, we have the anti-cavalry ones, something between, very specific studies of Roy, the anti-infantry one, the generally strong ones, the elephants, and Primus Pilus. Most of the times, hey, you will just counter them with your anti-cavalry cavalry units or your spearmen, as cavalry units usually don't have the melee armor. Now, obviously, if you see anti-cavalry unit, you will ideally want to counter it with your spearmen. If you see anti-infantry cavalry, you will want to counter it with your cavalry. But in general, yeah, you want to hit them hard. And typically, anti-cavalry units have high bonus against cavalry. So anti-cavalry units are ideal. But obviously, remember, every cavalry could be hiding some extra stat against your unit that you are planning to train. So be careful. Remember, if you're playing against Persians or Babylonians, then hey, they don't have the anti-cavalry cavalry unit. So use your anti-cavalry or cavalry units in general, as they will do really nicely against lancers and cataphracts. But beware of their mounted archers, okay? And yeah, hit them hard, that's all I'm gonna say, because yeah, they have good amount of health. And definitely be careful in open fields so they don't flank you. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna say. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you find this very useful. Tell me, did I forget something? Maybe something, hey, I missed something. You know, there's a lot of information. I could have missed something. So if you feel like I missed something, please tell me in the comment. Maybe I will put a comment on top of it. But yeah, I hope you find this useful, especially you new players, because hey, the more knowledge you have about the units, the better for you in your quests. And maybe even PvP if you're playing PvP. But yeah, hope you find this useful, and if you do, please press the like button. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. This was Psychosaurus. I'll see you next time. Bye!